Lava is the 2019 Argentinian animated film directed by A.R. Blasco, which recently had a release in America with an English cast, this time led by Janine Garofalo. I'm not really aware of anything from Argentina as far as film goes, so it's always great to get something from a different country, especially something like this, which is animated, and it now has the English-speaking cast, which preferably I tend to like movies that have subtitles. I'm not a big fan of seeing things that are dubbed. In the case of animation, there's been animated films I've seen that have been dubbed in English, and the only thing I ever really come out of it thinking is I wonder what changes were made from the original language to the English language, because sometimes it can be very subtle plot points, possibly, but more likely it's usually things that are only humorous in a certain country, especially depending on the kind of humor that comes from that country. Sometimes it can be a little more graphic in America, or it can be considered a bit taboo in America. So with Lava, I was expecting that there's probably some changes like that automatically. I did not watch the original version of the movie, the original language, so I'm not really sure how many changes were made, but for the most part, I tried to keep up with the story, because everything in this movie is extremely weird. As I said, it's an animated film, definitely done in the computer, with modern, what's come to be known as Flash animation. It's not necessarily done in Flash, but it's got that style. Definitely a crude look to the whole thing, but not necessarily bad. It really just depends on what your taste in animation is. In this case, everything looks a little rough around the edges. It kind of looks like what a South Park episode would look like, but without the felt appearance. It looks more like a Flash animation you would watch on the internet. Large amounts of blood, violence, and just strange concepts all around. So we have a group of 4 people who are doing what most 20-something or early 30-somethings are doing, which is chilling, working on their daily jobs. The main lead happens to be a tattoo artist. One day is asked to tattoo this very strange symbol, which he actually finds in a local magazine store. In that magazine, there's actually instructions on how to fight the upcoming apocalypse. This extremist group starts to mind control everybody with this strange pattern that's showing across all TV screens, all phones, all tablets, and it mind controls people unless you have these instructions from this magazine. So the heroes of our story try to fight past it all and figure out who's causing all of this havoc. In the meantime, there's another person who is trying to fight back against it as well. It's the people who made the magazine. Only we find out eventually that they're making all kinds of different books that may have their own mind control-like powers themselves, and this group may not be any better than the other group that is trying to control everybody. And while this is all going on, the main 4 are having strange discussions that range from having fights about people that they want to sleep with to conversations about their own sexuality. Meanwhile, there's also a giant snake that's attacking, these giant cats that are just looming over the town. There's a giant witch at one point. There's a bunch of giant monsters, basically, but characterized as things we've seen in the fiction or on the internet before. This has got a lot of internet humor to it. I mean, there's big old cats. What do you expect? It's a weird movie, and it's at 62 minutes. There's actually some shorts at the end of the film as well. I'm not sure if this is going to be released on the American cut that's available to everybody on streaming services, but I got a bunch of short films at the end. One that involved a dog, one that involved Bugs Bunny, and it's got all these weird things that cap it. Basically, it's an image from the internet that plays this like heroic music, and that's how they cap every single short film. It's very strange, but it totally feels like the humor of what would come from a different country. Like I said, I don't know much about film from Argentina, but if this is the kind of humor that they have for their animated films, then I kind of dig it. Just because I don't quite understand it. It's just wacky and absurd enough for me to enjoy it. It constantly has me dropping my jaw and saying, what? The movie itself, I think, is a bit too confusing to really keep up with. Some of the ideas are all over the place. There's a lot of strange editing moments. I don't think the sound mixing is nearly as good as it should be. That could be possibly because this is the English cut. Who knows, maybe the original version had a much better mix when they had the original voice cast. I don't have any idea. It might be fun to kind of check that one out just to compare it, but here the sound is a little off at times. They might have also done some fixes to it for the actual premiere release. And the plot itself never seems very focused. The characters kind of drag on different conversations that sometimes go nowhere for the overall plot or character development of everybody. It just seems like some conversations only come up to maybe get a laugh out of the audience. But it's wacky enough where, once again, it's just that humor that I think is meant to be of the country. You know, it's just that kind of humor that I don't know if a lot of Americans are gonna quite understand, but for a lot of people, the absurd nature of it all, you're gonna love it. It's definitely what you've come to expect from, you know, the classic internet humor. But with that, it's kind of hard to stay focused on what's going on because things are brought up and never brought up again. At one point, like I said, one of the characters are talking about their sexuality, but it never really comes into play. This other guy is obsessed with the main character, but it doesn't really seem like he moves one way or another as far as development goes. Another character just goes on their own journey for a while. He finds the people who are actually causing all of this havoc to begin with. It's just a giant snake that's got all these tattoos on it, and basically tattoos are like the language that is being used to mind control everyone. It's like the language that's being spoken that has the highest amount of control, which it's a kind of a punk idea in a way. The whole movie kind of has a punk vibe. It makes me more interested in what the creators are into beyond just animation, because you could tell that these characters definitely come from that 90s age of punk rock. They definitely grew up in that age and are now adults and trying to recreate everything that they loved about that era and bring it to the modern times. Because there's also like an obvious message against modern day technology or our reliance on screens. There's a couple funny moments with that too, because one of the characters, it's very clear that you got to keep away from screens, otherwise you're going to get mind controlled. It's not good. But another guy is trying to explain, well, we have the schedule right here. They somehow got a schedule for when the mind control is going to happen. One of the guys is trying to convince everyone else that, well, we can still watch certain television shows at these times of day. Instead of telling everybody to destroy their devices, let's just turn them off when they're going to mind control us, but then let's use these other times to watch television because that's what we do. And I think that's an interesting idea because we do have a huge reliance on technology, especially media being presented through every screen available nowadays. It's almost like we need a constant stream of media. It's a very short movie. It's only around an hour long, and you can tell that the creators are just trying to have fun with this really insane idea that they just wanted so many things to be in one movie in a short amount of time. And for that, I admire it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everybody. If you're a fan of adult animation, especially stuff that you've seen online that's done on a lower budget, this is definitely something that you may like. Definitely a tribute to what I think is the era of 90s punk and also the era of internet memes, and there's cat humor, so it's there. It's kind of just everything like that. But the concepts just don't feel focused enough for me to really talk about it any farther than I am. It doesn't really make a huge impression on me, but I'm still happy that I saw it because I love to see something from a different country. I love to see their perspective as far as comedy goes, and to see just different creations come from elsewhere, especially when it's technology that everyone has access to. Like, anybody can make an animated movie now. with a computer. Not necessarily a great one, and not necessarily amazingly animated one. It's not going to be as good as Pixar or Disney or DreamWorks, but you can still make it. And it's really cool that, all these voices can come out, and now we can have these voices even come from different countries. But for me, the weirdness just doesn't have enough answers, especially when there's a story behind it. It's not just weird for the sake of being weird, like in the case of Alice in Wonderland. No, there is a story here too. It's a very simple story that gets a little bit lost, and, for that, I kind of wish they would have went one way or another. I wish they would have either had more of a story to make it more complete, or they would have just forgotten the story entirely and just went straight for the oddball craziness of it all. Lava is available today on streaming services like Amazon, Google, and iTunes. So if you want to get something that's extremely weird on a low budget and from Argentina, check it out today. Thanks for watching the video, and special shout out to Anthony, Anna, Kirsten, Lucas, Ryan, and Robert for the support on Patreon. By joining my Patreon, you can get exclusive videos and blogs, and for only $7, you can request your own movie review. I hope you stick around, cinephile, and have a happy, productive day.